everybody, welcome to the Texas Office and Industrial Connection Show. I'm Michael Tran, your host today, and I am joined by Phillip Washington Jr. He runs a wealth management company called Stonehill Wealth Management, and he's been running that and a really successful podcast that I've been watching a lot recently, and it's very relatable, a lot of good content on there. So if you have time, make sure to check it out. But I wanted to let Phillip introduce himself, tell us about yourself and, what you do for hobbies as well. I know we have Muay Thai in common, and I'll leave it up to you.
All right. Thanks for having me. If you could tell my background, I'm hiding out in my room because my 4-year-old is chasing me around the house.
Yeah.
So I have to run in the room and lock the door. But thanks for having me. Ask Phillip is the name of my podcast, and the name of my company is Stonehill Wealth Management. And thanks for watching the podcast. The podcast is really a way for me to, do similar to what I'm doing, spread my propaganda, right? That's the beauty of the internet, right? You can spread your propaganda for not that much money, and allow, build brand and allow folks to say, hey, let me see what this person thinks before I trust them with some of my money. And so that's who I am. Born and raised Houston, Texas. We got the Muay Thai. I'm newer to Muay Thai, but I've always enjoyed martial arts, right? Whether it was doing karate a little bit growing up. We used to get beat up in college by this MMA guy, but he did a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So he would just tap us out. I think it was every Friday or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was what you think, just big, swole, impossible to beat up. But it was fun times.
Nice. So you run the wealth management company now. How did you get into that? I've heard on your podcast you talked about, you were looking into real estate, you applied to a company. What drove you in this direction, and how do you like it so far? Obviously, I'm thanks for listening to that. That was a while ago. So you really are listening to the podcast, right? Yeah.
So I always had a love for business, right? And so when I found out about investing, I was like, wait a minute, I can build a business that generates money while I'm working in it, but then I also can have my money work for me while I'm asleep. And so that led to real estate. It led to stocks, bonds, all that stuff. And so, my philosophy was in college was, hey, look, while I'm here, let me just, as a college student, talk to everybody who's in the industry or do as many internships as I can to figure out what I want to do before I graduated. And so I did a CCIM intro course with a bunch of I didn't know what that meant, but I was my advisor was well, hey, look, just go. There's going to be a bunch of people in the industry. So I went there, talked to folks, sat through the class, and then I was oh, this seems pretty cool. And then I interviewed with the Weitzman Group in San Antonio, and they were weirdly enough, they were going to hire me as a broker. They didn't realize I was an intern applicant, which is a whole story. But then I realized, I love the investment part of it, and I wanted to invest in everything. And so I was you know what? I like commercial real estate. I don't know if I want to sell it. I want to eventually put money to work in those different asset classes. And so that led me to getting into financial planning, which is selling mutual funds, and which it didn't really have the real estate aspect to it, but that was the next logical step. Until now, I finally started my own wealth management company, 10 years into it. How old was I? I'm 36 today. So I was 32 when I started the company. But now it allows me to, build out the wealth management part. And then eventually I'll have different funds for maybe a hedge fund, a private equity, or real estate fund. That's down the road. But I just, I love investing. And I think there's no best asset class. You got to own it all. And you got to have professionals like y'all that help make the right decision, because it's complex. I mean, stocks alone are complex. Commercial real estate, I watch y'all stuff to figure out what's going on there, because it's that's a complex place to live.
Yeah, the real estate can be stressful sometimes, and it's not for everybody. And so my sister's like, dude, I need to do that. And I was like, no, there's like a lot of constant stress, and like I'm very like even keel, and I like never like am too much of a roller coaster of emotion. So everyone's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But like on the inside, like I could have just had like three things blow out that day, and I'm putting them back under contract, and then it's like plugging in another buyer into this deal, and like, oh, who's ready to sell this, and this, and like your follow-ups. And then it's so easy to like get unorganized. And I've seen it so many times in the industry where inbox isn't clean. They don't know how to track their leads. They don't know how to track their potential listings. And then the listings they do have, they get too caught up in trying to get those taken care of when you already have to be planning for the next quarter or two, or even into next year at this point for me. Because, you know, if you're not, you get behind, and then you're always working from behind, and then you always forget things. And then you're like, oh, well, I was working on that building. And then somebody else takes it out just because you didn't call the guy and he forgot about you, you know, like that happens all the time. And then seeing, you know, investors buy a building where they say they can't lose on a price per square foot basis, but you can lose. And a lot of people don't realize that. It's like my stocks that I have now, right? I follow a few Discord channels for stocks, and they're like, buy this company called DGLY. And I bought it at like $4.99 a share. I bought a bunch of shares. It's at like it's floating at 380 right now. And I've got some on XSPA, and they're like they just got approved to do COVID testing, but in airports. And so I bought it at like $3, and then they jumped up to like $6. I sold at $6, bought in at $5. Now they're back down to like $4, but their price target apparently is going to be like $100 from this group I follow. And so, man, dude, stocks is like the worst for me because I always look at it from a real estate perspective where I'm like, hold your real estate, it'll appreciate. But dude, I'm telling you, I'm getting hit hard right now in the stock market. But
yeah,
you know,
well, no, go ahead. Well, it's the nuances, man. It's like, you know, it's like Muay Thai, right? You know, we might watch, you know, Rod Tang. You ever watch Rod Tang fight or Buakaw or whoever, Liam?
I gotta tell you about Buakaw. They say that I looked like him for a long time, and I could have just pretended to do a seminar as him and do that. And I was like, thanks, guys. Not all of us look the same, but thanks. And that's kind of flattering because he's a good fighter. But yeah,
that's I don't see it, but you might see them do something, and you might be like, oh, okay, I might could fight him, and then you get in the ring with him, and you get knocked out. Right? That's how I feel about real estate or stocks. Some people will say, oh, yeah, I can buy this property, or I can do this, you know, and then you get into it, and I'm like, no, it's not. Like, it's the nuances that kill you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The nuances, and so, yeah, that's the fun. That's where the 10,000 hours, right? I talk about, like, as a wealth manager, I'm different than like a Edward Jones or Merrill Lynch, you know, advisor. Not to knock them, because there's some great ones. There's some good people in the industry, but like there's the money, right? Versus people who are selling products. Either they're selling a mutual fund from some other company, or they're selling their company's prepackaged solution, or they say, hey, here's 10 boxes. Y'all can play in these boxes, but make sure you stay in the boxes. Like, I'm like, I actually like manage the money, but I wouldn't dare do that until I put in my, you know, 30,000 hours, right? 10 years, right? Sit on an investment committee, because it's the nuances that get people in trouble when it comes to investing, right? You know, you think, you know, they think I can watch Jim Cramer, you know, or join some group. Matter of fact, the podcast episode I just put out, you know, one of the topics was portfolio management versus stock selection, because stock selection is easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the easy part. You can set up screens to pick stocks. That doesn't matter. That's less than 10% of your success. Yeah. You know, the portfolio management part is like where you make the money, which I'm sure.
Yeah. Where you diversify.
It's the same in real estate, right? Everybody has money, you know, but it's like the operator is going to make the money on the property, right? Not just the person with the money. Everybody has money.
Yeah, you'll be surprised. There's one guy, the luckiest guy I've ever talked to. He bought a building for like 25 a foot, maybe, and it was like he had his insurance company go out there after that tornado that hit Dallas, and like, yeah, the building's a total loss. Like his building was only worth like 800,000. They gave him like, I think it was over 15 million bucks just because the replacement cost on it now. And so he's like, yeah, man, I got all this money. Like, I got to do something with it. And I was like, you can just retire now. You are the luckiest man I've. And it wasn't an area that was going to ever be anything great either. So, like, I was like, man, that's the best investment I've ever seen done.
That was a great investment.
Yeah. So that was that. But you had another podcast about the CARES Act. Can you elaborate for us here on this platform? I thought that was like a really good piece that you had that I wanted you to get on this episode.
Yeah, and I'm by no means expert, but we're specifically talking about the Tarrant County $30 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Tarrant County got money from the CARES Act, and they're entrusted to manage $30 million of it for businesses. And from my understanding about it is there's a window up application. If you go to tarrantcounty.com,
Mm-hmm.
It's like right on the front page, but there's a window time where you can apply. It started Monday and until I think we got like a couple of weeks or something like that. But and they're not doing it on the first come first serve basis. They really want to allow everybody to get some money, so they're going to like take all the applications and do their best to give some money to everybody who qualifies, right? Which I think is pretty cool. But the application process, because I went through it just to kind of, I don't qualify because my business was already kind of super virtual, but I just wanted to go through the applications, and it's really built for business that literally had to shut down. So I'm thinking, like physical businesses, like the gym that I go to, the MMA gym I go to, like they're going to qualify, or the restaurant, the hair salon, the barbershop, like based on the questions, they can really show that they can apply, but you got to have your documentation, right? And they got to check this, but I think it's up to $10,000. It's a grant. It's not a loan.
Yeah.
So that's good. But yes. So and Fort Worth has their own money. So when they say Tarrant County, it's not including the cities that have over 500,000 people. So Fort Worth is the only one, so they get their own allocation. It's all the 41 other cities in Tarrant County that don't have 500,000 people that qualify for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good deal. No, thanks for sharing. That's key. And, I feel like my family, we have a nail salon, and we had to shut down too. And, once we got reopened again, the phone at the nail salon, I had to go there because it was so busy.
Wow.
I had to leave the office and like, we really need your help. And I was like, oh, you guys can handle it. So I show up there. The phone did not stop ringing like for 2 hours straight. And
wow.
It was crazy because I had to like take the phone, and I was trying to book appointments because it was appointment only. And then while I was taking appointments, I couldn't hear what they were saying because so many calls were coming in after that. And then I left the phone off the hook for like an hour just so I could get the people that were trying to come in. And they're like, we don't care about the rules. We want our nails done. And I was just like,
wow.
I was like, please give me a break. Yeah. So it was madness for a while, but I think we got most of the ladies figured out on the nails, and peace has been restored. But we had to do a similar thing with the landlord, and I think we also got a small grant as well. So that was helpful for us. So whoever's listening, make sure you apply.
And I bet this whole, I don't mean to change topics, but I think COVID is going to help y'all's industry a lot, because all this money printing is going to be great for real estate. I mean, amazing for real estate, because you think, man, they're just going to make the money worth crap. And I'm like, if you only got a few places to put your money if you don't believe in like cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Real estate, gold, and Bitcoin is where,
So I was going to get to the Bitcoin part, but I definitely wanted to go for stocks with you since I feel like that's something we haven't touched on, because a lot of people who do get out of the real estate market sometimes go put it into stocks. And I wanted you to elaborate on the stock market for us, what industries that you look for within the stock market to place your money, and why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like here I gotta explain the framework because it'll make more sense for like investing, right? So you have seasons. Weathers have seasons, relationships have seasons, people have seasons, right? We got seasons of life, and like economies have seasons, and so depending on the season, and this is not like an opinion. If I say, okay, 1970s was a period of slow global growth and a lot of irresponsible money printing around the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, if you blindfold me and you give me and you tell me what's going on, because you see this last multiple years, right? So if you don't tell me when it is, but you tell me the environment, I'll tell you what did best over a 10-year period of time. And you could pick any time period and give it to me, because in that environment, real estate did well, gold did well, commodities did well, right? Just if you have that ingredient, it's going to do well. You look at the late 60s, right? The 60s really. And then you had growth that was slowing, but it wasn't like no growth, and the money printing hadn't got super crazy yet. Then you had what's called the Nifty 50, right? So what was the applicable period of time to that? You had the Nifty 50, which is like the McDonald's, right? It was the new businesses that were changing the economy then. Okay, fast forward to today, 2012, the world stopped growing, right? Because China was driving the world growth from 2000 to 2012. They slowed down. We'd already slowed down. So 2012 to 2019 was slow growth. Not, the money printing had kind of calmed down a bit, but it was still slow growth. Mm-hmm. And so then we had the birth of FANG, right? Another similarity, you look at the late 90s, again, slow growth because all the emerging markets had went bankrupt in the mid-90s. America was already slowing down. And so then people ran to growth stocks again. So the similarity is when you have a slowing growth environment, but not necessarily no growth, then you have people moving to growth stocks, right? And then the reverse, when growth is growing strong, mm-hmm. and there's a lot of global growth, like 2000 to 2012 or the 80s, right? Then you have value stocks that do well, and value stocks include like think of like the old boring industrials, manufacturing, mm-hmm. oil and gas, and obviously in recessions, what does well is cash, bonds. People want that, and then if okay, how do governments always throughout time, like since we've had central banks for 400 or 500 years, how do we get out of recessions where they print money? Like every time. So there's no exception. And so what does money printing do? It makes the value of money worth less. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Gold, those kind of things do well. So giving you that background, you say, okay, what types of stocks do you want to own in this environment, right? I'm still a fan of like the FANG type stocks, right? Stocks that have good financials. Because think about, there's a flock to safety. So you're like, okay, if the world is slowing, what companies are going to eat other companies, right? But also have a strong balance sheet because, when you have deflation, companies that have a lot of debt, they struggle. Mm-hmm. Apple's like a textbook example of a company that is just in great financial strength with a lot of room to grow. So you want growth, you want good financial strength. And then you want to think, okay, which economy is the best, right? In the world, right? Not perfect, the best. Well, U.S., right? Because y'all see this in your business. Where do all your rich, out of non-U.S. Clients want to put their money?
Here.
Yeah, here. Yeah. Because I mean, sure, U.S. has its problems, but everywhere outside the U.S. is worse. So they want American assets, right? And so from a stock perspective, like U.S. stocks that are growth stocks that have a strong balance sheet is where I'm sitting for the stock portion of the portfolio right now. and that's a real short list. Like my screen is probably less than 50 stocks right now, out of 20,000. You know.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm hearing like this Nikola brand that's like the new Tesla of 18-wheelers, and I keep hearing about another one that's emerging right now. But a lot of people actually like Tesla, which I hear is like getting inflated too because of all that they're doing, like the space launch and everything. So I've always been curious about where to do that. AMD was a good one for me last year. It's kind of a roller coaster, but that technology one was good too, even though it's not American per se, but it's taking on Intel.
I was gonna say, but they sell to a lot of American companies because what is it? AMD, and it's the other one. I call them Android and Apple, Android and iOS. It's AMD.
It's Intel. Intel.
Yeah, but AMD also sits. They also, because Intel's like dead or dying. They're like AT&T. But you're right, same thing. But it's AMD and it's NVIDIA. That's who it is.
Oh, NVIDIA.
Yeah. Those are kind of the two Android and iOS of chip making. They're good companies. Like I like them. They just didn't. They didn't clear my screen because of the intense competition between them right now. Spotify was another one that I really wanted to buy like at the beginning of the year, but it wouldn't make my screen, and I'm super disciplined on it because the reason why I started my podcast is I was like, listen, when Facebook came out, older people said, I'm not going on Facebook. They're on Facebook. Then Instagram, I'm not going to Instagram. And then podcast came out, and I was like, listen, only people who listen to podcasts are people who are like me and your age. But I'm like, the older folks are coming. So I started one 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Spotify has made all the right moves, but their profit margin is like non-existent, and so I couldn't, I couldn't buy it in this environment. But
yeah, $10 a month for each subscriber.
Yeah,
but that's good. So let's transition then to your up and coming asset that you believe, Bitcoin. So I used to lease prior to the investment sales side, and I would get guys who call me and they're like, yeah, I'm opening a Bitcoin mining operation. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, why would somebody do this? So I started looking into it, and I read about, Bitcoin, how it came to be. The Japanese man created this algorithm, and you have to mine for the Bitcoin, and now nobody can find this man. So he can't just print the money, and then you got to keep mining for more. So you see these guys building like little data rooms full of full power like computers just designed to do that and mine Bitcoin. And so I had like maybe 5 or 6 buildings I was leasing, and they're full service. So don't have to worry about electric, don't have to worry about utilities or anything. You just pay your base rent. And so they'd set up these rooms just full of computers, and they just start their mining operation, pump the AC down to I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said they were killing the electricity bill, right?
They were, yeah. So we were like, what's going on here? I didn't think it'd be like a full-blown 24/7. They had like extra vents in there for, to keep it cool and so they could keep doing their job. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. But then it started blowing up, and then so they kind of had the right thing going, and they're doing all right. They're actually doing really well. But yeah, so tell us why you believe Bitcoin, because I've always been skeptical of Bitcoin, but I see why it might be good in the future, but just not right now.
And a lot of folks that listen to my podcast were confused by it initially, because in 2017, in the winter of 2017, I was like, listen, I don't know what this is either, but it's breaking my shoe shine boy rule. And they're like, what's that? I said, shoe shine boy rule is like back in the 1929, this well-known trader, the kid who was shining the shoes was giving him stock tips. And I was like, listen, like whenever people don't know what they're talking about, start giving you tips on an asset class. And it's like everybody like sell and wait, because it's a bubble. So that's where Bitcoin was. And I tell them, I think it's the way of the future, but I wouldn't own it right now because y'all don't know what you're talking about. And it's too many of y'all that are rapid about it. So sell. But and so I took 3 years to kind of dig into it because I knew it was going to be something.
Yeah.
And it did my rule. Like I was like, it needs to drop 80% before I get interested. Hit a couple other rules or whatever. And so it did that. And but the long-term thesis, the reason why I'm long-term bullish on it is a lot of the problems that we have right now as a society, right, is because of central banks. So you kind of have that as a pillar, and then you have the fact that currencies like reserve currencies only last 80 to 100-ish years, right? Meaning the dollar is the world currency that's done, where business is done around the world. Before it was the pound, right? Before that it was the Dutch, what is it called, guild or whatever. Before that it was the Spanish, whatever it was called. And so those last, 70, 80, 100 years. And so we're at the 100 year of the dollar being the reserve currency, and it's hitting the same point. So interest go to zero. The country's really broke, right? You have all these bubbles, like like if you go to a doctor be like, oh, check. Yeah, you got diabetes, right? You can go through the economy and you can check it and say, all right, the currency is like a 98-year-old, unhealthy male, right? Are they going to die tomorrow? Maybe not,
Yeah.
but it's not looking great.
Yeah.
And so when you have that, there's going to be a new currency regime. Now, the cool part about Bitcoin is, and humans is, it's not likely to be the Chinese renminbi, right? Because like they print more monopoly money than anybody, right? They don't even transact in world markets in renminbi, and so because normally it would be the competing world power that takes over, but nobody trusts their money. So then you're like, well, man, human beings came through and they invented a new kind of currency that takes out the control of central banks, right? Because and you know this too, right? The reason why we have a big spread between the haves and the have-nots is because it's whoever's close to the central bank, right? So tell me about this. How it's a bunch of people who are billionaires, like, or 100 millionaires or whatever, that feel like they're really smart, but all they did was like borrow a bunch of money, leverage up, and then they get. But it's not a political statement. Literally, the president of the United States of America would have went bust in '08 if the Fed had not printed money. You know what I'm saying? Like, he literally wouldn't be the president because he would have gone to zero, right? If the Fed did not print money and save him. And I'm saying that because you have a system where it's not capitalism, right? You privatize the gains and you socialize the losses, right? And people can't articulate that, but you can't have that go on for long, because then everybody's going to be shooting each other, and nobody wants that, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, people can't voice what's up, but they want it to be fair, and they're like, I don't know what it is, but this system doesn't really seem fair. You know what I mean? And so you kind of have all those things where you have all these pieces that are moving, but you got this currency, this Bitcoin that says, okay, there's no whatever 7 bankers who get to decide how much money is printed around the world, right? It's decentralized. You and I can set up a computer and run what's called a node to just basically say, it's basically like saying, we can be in the room with those 7 guys and see how they make decisions versus them doing it behind closed doors and then telling us some BS. Like, if you run a node, you can see all the transactions, what the rules are, right? Whether you run a node or not, you can audit the rules set up in Bitcoin for how things work, right? It's set up to where there can only be a limited number of Bitcoin ever created, right? And if they want to change the number, i.e. print money, you got to get like 51% of the people in that whole Bitcoin to do it, right? Which is like a true democracy. And so the non-nerd version for me to explain it is, we watched the internet 30 years ago. News came from 3 stations, right? And if they didn't want news to be played, it didn't get played. Versus today, we all have our own media company, and the news travels bottom up now, right? Something happens that they don't want to get out, it's coming out because we have our own media company, right? They can't limit that power. And the evolution of world has been from moving away from monarchs to more decentralization, right? Like the beauty of the world, even though it's bad right now, we continue to get more freer, more power in the hands of more people. And so the internet did that for communications. What Bitcoin and blockchain is doing that for money, right? It's going to take the power out of central banks and take it from where whoever's closest to that money gets rich and move it to where it's rules based. Anybody can participate in the system. And I can do a whole hour on just, how inflation is just a terrible tax on savers, right? Bitcoin also allows you to like save money and not lose, right? 'Cause right now people don't save money because you don't earn anything on it, right? So I mean, I don't want to go too long on it, but it's a whole host of reasons why Bitcoin is like the solution for what we're in right now. Like all the chaos, Bitcoin is that solution. Like if you can create a magic wand and say, how do we solve the problems in the world today? Bitcoin. It's already, you know what I'm saying? Now you just got to wait for things to play out.
Yeah, so I've been seeing like Bitcoin ATM machines around. And so is that what we need to do, is take a portion of what we have on the side and just go to that ATM and get our Bitcoin? I mean, what do we do?
Well, yeah. So what I recommend is like research first, right? Because right now Bitcoin is like the wild west, meaning if you own, like, you can buy Bitcoin through a wallet, which is like an exchange, and they hold your Bitcoin for you. But the risk is if they get hacked or whatever, like your money's gone. There's no FDIC insurance. You can get a hardware wallet, and when you get some, then kind of think of it like a USB drive or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're on there, so you can keep it. But if you lose it or lose your pass key, then you lose your Bitcoin. So you really want to get I own some right now through an ETF, right? So it's a grayscale ETF, right? And by the way, this is not a recommendation, but I own some through an ETF because I can participate. I don't think the monetary system is going to break down, completely, and so I can get some of the upside of Bitcoin continue to be adopted. Participate in that while I'm learning about the security, right? Because the security is like tough, right? Which hardware wallet? How do I make sure it's fully secure? So I'm in the process of going through that education and making sure I understand it myself. I'm sure 5 years from now, there'll be a more consumer-friendly version of it, right? Kind of like websites back in '99. Like you really had to, it was hard to create a website back today. And now we have WordPress, right? So I'm sure there'll be a WordPress version of how to hold your stuff in the future. But right now, it's kind of like websites '99. Like, you gotta know what you're doing to hold your own Bitcoin.
Yeah. So you're seeing, there's also like some other cryptocurrencies I'm seeing. Have you had any experience with those, or can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, so I've dug into them, and my only problem with them is the main problem with currency today is the fact that money is controlled by seven people of the same background behind closed doors, right? That's the ultimate problem, right? That's all and so these new cryptocurrencies are the same thing. Like Ripple is controlled by, the same small border people who can print more money whenever they want to. Ethereum, same thing, right? All these other ones, it's more of the same thing right now. Now, are they going to grow in value? I don't know. I can't handicap that. But Bitcoin, I can handicap because it's like the solution to the problems, and there's literally no better solution. You know what I'm saying? And it's too big now for governments to stop it, right? The tipping point is going to be when governments start saying, "Or this isn't going away. We need to add Bitcoin as one of the currency basket we use as reserves," and that's when you're going to see like the game change. But the other currencies don't. They can be manipulated. You know what I'm saying? Like, all they got to do is arrest the Ethereum. If they want to shut down Ethereum, they just go arrest the 7 people who run it or whatever, and put pressure on them to do something, and the game is over. You lost all your Ethereum because it's been exposed for what it is. It's a concentrated, a new version of central banking. Which I'm like, if you're gonna do that, I might as well just keep my money in cash.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Well, that concludes it for me. Is there anything else you'd like to add for the podcast? And if not, tell everybody where they can find you, number and everything, and website as well.
All right. Yeah. No. Thanks for having me. Best place to find me is my podcast. You can Google Ask Phillip or search Ask Phillip on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of the major players. I'm also Ask Phillip on Instagram. But those are the best places to find me. But I appreciate you having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. What's your phone number as well? And for a post-COVID world, where's your office?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So post-COVID world, my office is 610 Uptown Boulevard, Suite 2000 in Cedar Hill, Texas. Phone number is 469-608-1457. You can call or text me. And my email is phillip@stonehillwm, like wealthmanagement.com. And I'll throw in there my website too if you want it. stonehillwealthmanagement.com. Actually, I should have given my website because that had everything on it. stonehillwealthmanagement.com. If you don't remember anything else, just go to stonehillwealthmanagement.com and it has the podcast and everything on it.
Dude, your website is very easy to navigate and user-friendly. I will attest to that. I've been there several times, I think, before this podcast, actually.
Appreciate it, man. Shout out to 8-Digit Media. They did it.
Good deal. All right, Phillip. Well, thank you. I know you're going out of town tomorrow. You have a safe trip, and we'll connect soon.
All right, definitely. Thank you.